Okay, welcome back everyone to our last call of the challenge kickoff. This is crazy.
End of the year.
End of the year. Wow. How are you feeling? How have you felt from the beginning of the challenge to now, and where are you at in your process right now?
Well, I'm so interesting because I've done this process for years and years and years. It just changes forms. And so I actually have a lot of ease around knowing my pockets of when I'll really, dig in deep versus when I'll pull back. And I have an email coming out soon where I talk about the little portal and vortex in which I do the most of this work. Anything preparing for the new year is actually between the 26th through the 31st. It's that little quiet pocket after the major holidays have sort of settled, the parties have settled. It's that quiet time. It's what I've always used. So I actually like to even the weeks that I have completed, because I'm behind, as we talked about before this.
Yeah.
I like to dig in way deeper then. That's my time. It's a little vortex. And we have that full moon on the 26th, that cold moon. So I feel really good. I think a lot of people are probably feeling like, I need to catch up. I'm stressed. I've dropped the ball. Or some people are feeling probably really on top of it. What about you?
It's funny because I feel like, so I had 4 major manifestations I took through this year. And one of them hasn't my list for it hasn't crystallized yet. And I'm not rushing it. I'm just I know what the category is, but I don't know what it looks like. And so I'm just taking notes if an expander comes through or a ping comes through, but I'm not even crafting the list on that yet. And then the other ones are so clear. I knew the second I wrote the list, I was I want this. It was so precise. And the one that's actually having the most motion is Daniel and I are manifesting our next home.
Yes.
And this is the first I've been wanting to move kind of ish for the last few years, but was toying around with whether it was the right financial time. We save so much by being in the place we're in now. We love how much light it gets. There's a lot of things we love. But this year we were I think it's time. We've extended our crab show. I think it's time. So this is the first year I actually wrote it on my list.
Whoa.
And after, and I had all the details out and everything. And I'm not kidding you. The second I wrote the list, things came on the market that I was shut the fuck up, universe.
Yeah.
There's no way. I've been trolling Zillow for months, just looking, seeing what's out there. These types of properties were not coming up before. So we've already gone on 2 home tours. They were both expander tests, but it's so cool. Even stepping in this space, we're holy crap, we can afford this. And this feels amazing. It's so close. Definitely going to say no because there's electrical pole right next to the whole bedroom of it all. But other than that, everything is amazing. So that's a no, but it's coming. And so it's these moments of that one is, I feel I'm on week 5 of the challenge but the other ones are okay, one is still on expanders and one's still on unblocking. So I'm at different phases with each of them.
And what I like the most of what you just said is that you're not rushing a list. I think that's so important for people. It's you have elements and the essence of that one that you're calling in that it hasn't crystallized, but you don't feel pressure on it. I think a lot of people come to this work and they feel pressure because we set things in an order, but when you start to become seasoned in this work, you really build your trust muscle through manifesting small to big things. You kind of start to trust that process. I feel that's how I'm always going through manifestation, is that ease and ebb and flow, that it's not really step by step for me much anymore. One thing will present and show me that I want this thing, but I don't quite know what that is, so it's really, I think that's just a really cool licensing as people mature in their process.
And it's so funny how they're all interwoven, especially when you get to week 4 of unblocking, seeing what those blocks or fears are. Likely a similar root block for me with the home is about will touch on my wedding venue. Those will be connected in some way, so it's as I peel back those layers, it's going to unravel another manifestation. So it's just so interesting how layered the whole process is.
Yeah, and that's just a good note because we've talked about love and money so much. That's such a good example of how love is in one category, your wedding venue.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good example of people wouldn't traditionally think about that under the love category, but how it's directly connected to home, which is under
Mm-hmm.
security, money. All of it's connected. It's so beautiful because one gives you a hint towards the other because they're probably the exact same block
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or need of
I've
expansion.
I've been getting a lot of DMs too from the community of like just the most kismet things dropping in when they take the little steps, or even if they just stay regular with their practice. They're like, oh my God, this happened. Like this popped in, this popped through. So for anyone who, maybe hasn't started yet or kind of fell off the horse, like you have so much time to go back in and just know, like every single time you go in, something else will shake out on the other side. A friend of mine was saying that she caught up over the weekend in a job that she had applied to like months ago, totally felt like ghosted, never heard back, reached out and was like, amazing. Can you come in for a final interview? Like seconds after she finished doing
It's
Unblocking
amazing.
DI. Like
Is that insane?
it's wild.
I know. And people are always, well, not always, because you have to build your trust muscle, but some people are like, ugh, and they lag and they get really excited about aligned action. If they're like, especially Aries, I feel like I'm so excited for aligned action. But then, it's like that deeper work. It was so crazy. I always think about actually last year when I was like microdosing for that period, kind of coming up with sort of what we did for those new deep imaginings we worked with Janelle on. It was like my process that I was doing on my own. I was unblocking so heavily, so much within like a 3-week span. And it was insane to watch what came through. And I know a lot of people can feel like it's daunting to go there or to do that work, but it's just so rewarding too, because you're rewarded after it.
So, so true. Like I was doing the letting go DI around like this inner child sadness I've had of like it not being Christmas with family and I'm a kid anymore, and just letting that chapter go and sitting with that. And it didn't necessarily relate to a specific manifestation, maybe at home in general. It definitely related to my authentic code. But I was like just looking at, okay, this is a trigger test that's coming up. I need to like sit with this emotion. And afterwards, I'm like, oh, just like I felt the energy of Christmas. Like I felt like I had it in me. I felt so much calmer. And then a couple of surprise gifts popped in the mail.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's another good example of something somebody wouldn't even think that maybe they have grief over this season. I mean, there's a lot of things I think people are probably going to process grief over, but I really like those sort of like blurry in between the line, not so on the nose things that we are needing to process. Like our inner child is who's driving. It's really who's driving our manifestations. And it can either be our magnetic inner child or our wounded inner child. So it's like the more that we can tap in and work with. And I love that you were using the letting go, the grief. It's just, I think this is so big. I even got a text this morning from my friend Jamie that's like, I'm really grieving like my old life before we moved. Like this is so huge for me. That episode with Dr. Tara, I didn't even really know like this has been under the surface for so long. So it's just, it's really big work, and people think it's just like, but it's important to really grieve that stuff.
It's so interesting because I was talking to another friend about just like there's a lot of people I noticed that feel like they've been like in that rut, and are still navigating. I know we had a lot of people in our community who were in that rut, who are just like waiting for that win or that next thing, or like the tension to break. So they get that job or they get, whatever they were like waiting for comes through. And I think part of releasing out of that rut, and probably for the people in rock bottom too, is examining our grief over the situation.
Yeah.
Is there grief for being in a rut for that long? Is there grief for whatever idea or attachment that you've been holding on to? Like now is the time to sit and process, just like let that wash over you, because that is going to be such deep unblocking work.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of releasing the grief one right now, especially so close to the holidays, I think it's a really, really like astute time that a lot of grief is going to come up for people. May
Mhm.
it be you're right up against family or the lack of family, what's happening in the world. Like there, I think people, this is a time, especially bombarded by social media. I know my entire feed is nothing but like dogs that need homes, and it's just like, this is such a potent time to allow all of that to wash through you and work through you. And again, it's just another form of unblocking. So like we talked about the magic that comes after you unblock, it's going to be the same thing with the processing of grief.
1000%. Um, yeah, let's dive into the questions because
I
you
know.
got
I'm
some
like,
good
I
ones
want to
in here.
know, what do people need help with? What's going on? And, all that fun stuff. I'm excited.
I also want to welcome anyone that's new because it seems like we have a lot of like
Yeah.
first timers. This is your first time with us. Welcome. Just know that I got a lot of unblocking questions this week too. Of like, I did this one DI. Like, am I done? Am I all good? You can keep revisiting it. Like, it takes time to overwrite those neural pathways. I know our people who have been with us forever know this already, but I just want to put that out there that keep going back to that core wound, to the pain point, to the emotion. Like it doesn't have to be the exact same one, but hit it from different angles. I had someone ask about like finances. They feel in so much lack and they're doing the DI and they don't know like they do the same memory the whole time. And it's like, well, how does lack present? Like, what are all the different ways? Like, what did you witness? What did your inner child really want? Is there unblocking around feeling like you can't have things? Like, there's so many layers into one block. So just
Mhm.
keep peeling it back and take whatever is triggering you that week, that day. That's your roadmap of how it might relate to that block.
Yeah.
So for
Love
anyone
it.
out there. Okay. Is it okay to be friends with an ex? I value our friendship, but could this be hindering my manifestations?
It's a really simple answer, even though it feels really complex, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it feels easy to someone. The way that on an energetic manifestation level that I determine this is, have you and have they fallen in love with somebody new? Because
Mhm.
until both of you do this, not just one of you, it means that the energetic cord is still attached to one another, meaning they're still holding space in your relationship zone if you're calling something in. And remember, love and money are always connected. So again, if you're calling something in within the umbrella of money, meaning anything to do with security, it could be home, career, like Jessica gave an example of, look at how love and money are connected in her life from a wedding venue. So know that it's affecting many different aspects of your life in love and money. So until both of you really do truly not have any, even if it's so subtle, any undertones of needing approval from one another and that connection, like let's say that's finally been given to somebody else, even if you're not with that person that you ended up dating after and they aren't either, it just, you had to have had that experience where you've actually fallen in love with somebody new and they have as well, so that your cords aren't attached to each other. They're attached to the new experience or something else. Otherwise, they're holding that space in your life, regardless of how platonic you think it is.
So interesting. So, kind of dive into this a little bit more. What other things, because I know we get the question of like, oh, I have a narcissist in my life. Like, is that holding space for whatever? Like, what are the other things? Because even we just came off of Aligned Action Week and people were clearing space. Like, how else can they see what might be stuck in their sphere that's energetically tied to something and blocking their manifestations?
Absolutely. So it can be a narcissistic friend who you're the sidekick for, that they're constantly taking up that space. You wouldn't even think that, but they're taking up your romantic space. And remember, because love and money are connected, it means that it's also affecting things you're calling in from the money umbrella. Again, that can be career, money, finances in any way, the house, like anything to do with security. Another can be also overbearing parents that you're having to, a meshment of any kind where you're really the number one support system. This happens a lot with people who have been raised by a single parent, where growing up, you were their everything. You were their partner, their kid, their parent, their everything. So that's another way the space can be taken up. I think when you're totally addicted to your job and an overbearing boss, so if it's no longer like just like you have a really you're just like lit up by what you do, but nobody here's breathing down your throat, right?
Yeah.
Like that I know of.
Yeah, no.
I think you're the only one breathing.
I'm breathing down my own throat.
Right? Like I think, if you have that, like I like to think of like the Devil Wears Prada or something like that can be something taking up that space. The X piece is a big one. What other examples come to your mind after being in this for so many years?
I hope my friend doesn't mind me sharing this, and I'll ask her afterwards. But she is calling in a partner, and she's a Scorpio, and she's a very like dark sense of humor. And her welcome mat and her door says "leave," and she had like a reading with someone, and they were like, "You're projecting out like get out, leave energy." And she was like, "No, I'm not. I'm like so open." She's dating and she's all these things going on. And she was like, "I'm holding on to this mat that like at a time I did like it was sort of protection. I thought it was funny, like leave my home. But also like the first thing that someone sees when they walk through my door is leave. That's not very inviting. Like, what if I have a partner over? Like, is this material item or the symbolism of it blocking like my openness, And it might not be so direct, but it was interesting to see how like this thing that she had for, I don't know, 7 years, she didn't even think about it, but it's in her home symbolically telling people to leave. So I just think that there's items too that kind of highlight things from your past that no longer align. Like I've been clearing out so much in our home, and I found this old fake succulent that I got from the dollar store when I first moved out to LA because I like really wanted the cute ceramic succulents that like I'll have now around my home. But at the time I didn't, want to spend the money on it. Couldn't afford it. And I still had this dollar store succulent. And I was like, why do I have this in the back of my closet? Like I need
in
to
the back of your
Yes, it was like stored with like old stuff in case I might need it again. And I was like, we need to get rid of this. Like, why is this even here? So I think also clearing space is like, what are these things that we're holding on to? Like, why are we attached to them? Like, am I just remembering when I like really wanted more expensive succulents and could only afford this? Like take a picture of it if I want the memory. Like let's get rid of the thing, So it's like those little silly things that are just around that you can just pull out of your space.
Yeah, like the thing I would say, like the succulent itself doesn't represent that, and the mat itself doesn't represent like holding things back, but it would be the subconscious attachment to them, right? So if she's that scorpionic, dark sense of humor that probably she picked up in childhood that's like pushing things away, that's just little representations of it, even though just for people, just so this lands, like the mat itself isn't blocking her from the relationship. But and also with you, it's like a form of lack, and you've outgrown lack. So it's like that's the thing. You're like, wait, what? Like how, and it's funny when we have these awakenings in this process, because then something like the succulent feels so silly, whereas none of us have heard about the succulent before. You know what I mean? It means that you literally hadn't arrived subconsciously, outgrown that form of lack yet. Like, I better hold on to these things because what if I give it away one day to someone, or what, just like whatever the lack is there. So I think just for new people tuning in, that's what you're saying is like, it's actually, they're like hints of what's actually going on subconsciously that you're projecting.
Yes, that's it. It's like subconsciously, and the same thing with actions. Like your actions are giving you clues to what's happening in your subconscious. Like the decisions you're making, how you're portraying yourself in the world, all of those things are all reflections of that subconscious. So look at the little things that you keep around. What is that saying about your subconscious? Is that still the story, or are you ready to cut ties and toss that old succulent?
Yes. I love this question. I love revisiting this one because it's one that's like, it's not black and white, but when you figure it out and you survey your life, you're like, oh, yeah, oh gosh, there are things taking up space. And I'm trying to call in like romance or money. And whoa, I didn't realize some stuff's really taking up space and it matters.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any tips for letting go of fear of resistant to shining in your full brightness? I constantly hit a ceiling of fear and hold myself back from my full beingness.
I feel like that's a journey. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'll let you kind of take that one, take the lead on it, because I feel like I've had to do a lot of work on that, and that's a big journey.
I think it is not one step. It
Yeah.
is a lot of micro steps. Because I remember even last summer, I was like, okay, I want to get more comfortable public speaking. And, I would like take a master class on public speaking, from whatever course that was. And that didn't really do it. And, it was like, I'm learning this stuff, but like what actually moved the needle is putting it into practice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I would record an Instagram story and try to like set into my energy and like notice what was happening with my face and whatever. And like, am I nervous or am I holding back? Okay, if I'm holding back or I'm nervous, like, let me unblock that. Let me get my nervous system calm, like step through that fear. And just keep putting yourself out there. That's why I love TikTok, because I think there's such a volume of videos on TikTok that it's very low stakes. Like you can record yourself talking about pretty much anything. And the first one is going to be cringe. Like there's no way it's not going to be cringe. But by like the 30th one or the 50th one, you're like, oh, okay. Like I understand how to do this now. That's the same thing. When you have that resistance, that fear of like fully shining or being in your essence, you just have to take like one step through the fear, keep stepping through the fear again, again, again. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm comfortable here.
Yeah. If I look back on my process too, a couple of the things, when I say it's a journey, it was because it was equal parts unblocking and expanding that took time. And I think the things that moved the needle the most for me were literally surrounding myself around women that I admired, that I could just be myself and shine my light around. Like there was no competition. Because I think a lot of that wounding comes in childhood, whether it's a narcissistic parent that, and trauma that like makes you small, but also like for me, I think it's a witch wound, honestly. Like I've seen it with all of the women in my family. And I see this with other women that I know. I think it's a lot for people. Like, and I can say this really confidently. I'm really smart. I'm really attractive. I've always been confident, even if it's like I'm insecure inside outwardly, I've always been confident, and I'm really fucking nice and generous. And that's really uncomfortable to people. So like if you're a friend of mine, I'm an Aquarius with a lot of Leo, like I'm so loyal. I am so your champion, and I'm so generous to you. And I'm like that with people that I just meet. And I think for people, they don't know how to process that. So even from a really young age, I would notice, oh, I need to shrink in order to fit in or be loved, And so the more that I would unblock things, as well as surround myself around women that just are, like I'm thinking of the women in my life, like Laura, who does Reiki, a lot of women, gosh, I have so many in my circle who are just like, there's no competition. We're just like all stoked on each other and happy, want to see each other shine, that started to really heal. So it was on a subconscious level doing the unblocking, but also that expansion in real time, that it's like, oh no, I can really just be my full self. And if somebody doesn't like it, move on. But without fail, they always come back around because they realize, oh, she really is that nice. Oh, she really is that. You know what I mean? They're like, it's not a mean girl thing. It's like, she really is just genuinely that thing. So I don't know what this person, what's making them shrink, but I do think that version of unblocking, expanding is pretty powerful at the same time over time.
Mm. Yeah. And I'm even thinking too, like when I was going through that kind of process, putting those little actions into the world, when I would do the unblocking DI, I would sit with like, okay, what is the story that's coming up? Like, let me get curious. We're not consciously curious about it in the moment. But then if you go into the DI, it's like, what was the story I was telling myself that made me constrict or
Yeah.
hold back or whatever? Because that is what's sort of in that way. And then I'd be like, oh, well, I'm afraid that so and so will see me do this and say this about me. I'm afraid that, whatever that narrative is, let it run out and debunk it. Like
Yeah.
that's where the worst case scenario DI is so helpful, because it's like, oh, if they did that, that wouldn't even be that big of a deal. And it's actually really unlikely that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
so sitting with that, I think, will be so huge.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's just a process, and there are many ways to tackle it that will cause effectiveness.
Yeah. I like how you said though, it's almost like your expanders circle help
Yeah.
you to heal that. And I think community in that way is so important for like
Yeah.
any of our blocks or limiting beliefs or any of that stuff. When we start to take that step, when we step through that fear, having our support system around us, like who are the
Yeah.
people that are going to champion us, even when we're not our best selves or not our most confident or not whatever, who see us. Because I
Yeah.
think that is so important. And that's why I even would encourage people, like if you see someone on social and you don't know them, but you feel like compelled to give them a compliment, do it. Like,
Mm,
like that you have now become their champion and support system. Like
yeah.
those types of things are so important. Whenever I get the ping, I could like DM the biggest stranger, but I see something about them. I'm like, wow, they're really shiny in this way. I'll send them a quick DM. Who knows if they read it, whatnot. But like if I got the ping to do it, I'm going to follow it because maybe they really needed to hear it that day. So
Yeah. I love that. If we all could do that in the world, be
I
really
know.
nice.
No more hater comments,
Oh,
more like love and supportive comments. It's
well, the hater
amazing.
comments are interesting if you find yourself as one who's doing it. All it is a trauma response. It has nothing to do with the person you're commenting on. Literally nothing. It's
Mm-hmm.
completely like a direct thing to unblock, which I've had to learn my own way.
What would you say? Okay, so for anyone, I know probably none of you guys do this, but if someone did leave comments or you even just feel yourself getting so angry, seeing something on social, right? What would be a protocol of how to explore that a little bit deeper?
Yeah, it's why is this triggering me? Has
Mm,
nothing to do with this thing or this experience. I'm going to take it through a DI. The trigger DI is a great starting point. The unblocking DI, I love the unblocking DI for this. And then you'll see at the bottom of it, oh shit, this experience that I'm witnessing or this person that I'm witnessing, whatever it is that's triggering, whoa, it's directly affected to this kid in third grade or my teacher or my mom, or that my mom used to judge people for that. It has nothing to do with the thing. And this is all really shadow work, right?
mhm.
Like, this is it, because like one of the most beautiful things about that shadow book that I love by Deborah, I forget her name. It's all failing me right now. Pregnant, my brain doesn't work, and coming off of two colds. But like nothing that you're witnessing, are you actually really affected by the thing in front of you? It's always something to do with the past that
Mm,
you had to learn through witnessing or experiencing, that thing means that you're bad and you won't be loved. So you
mm,
have to not like it or be angry about it, or because of that, you were abandoned in childhood. It's so
mhm,
layered for people. So that's why it really behooves anybody to do shadow work, because you become not only a much more integrated and happy person that's much less bothered by things, but also you are able to like look at what about that thing is expanding you, right? Like
mm,
even when you're seeing things that you're powerless over, like a lot that's happening in the world, or, I see with animals. It expands me all the time to be like, cool, how can I step up? I'm maybe not stepping up publicly. People aren't seeing behind the scenes of what's happening, but it's like, what can I do to make a difference? How can I contribute to make a difference, rather than leaving comments and say, you stop doing any of that because you know that it means nothing and it does nothing. How can I actually make change? And so we always like to talk about too, especially when you are triggered by a person on social media, there's something about them that's actually expanding you. That's envy. The subconsciously, without you even knowing this on a conscious level, there's something about them that you literally are admiring, or they're showing you something about your true authentic self that you had to learn at a young age is bad. And if you can integrate that and unblock it and actually bring that into you, some of the greatest joy will come. I have an example of this. Danny Weinstein. I talk about her a lot in her experience, but Danny Weinstein, my good friend and astrologer, she was really programmed from a small age, the way that she grew up, extremely privileged, on the Upper East Side. Like, this is the type of person you fall in love with, and this is how it looks and how it's supposed to be. And she was single for a very long time. And watching the show, Sons of Anarchy, she really was like, feeling this connection with one of the characters. What's happening in that moment on a subconscious level, literally her soul is telling her, you desire this. You haven't ever been allowed to like this. There's nothing about this that's okay. I've never seen the show, but I'm assuming it's like this guy's in a biker gang and he's young, and her soul wants to have that experience. Her authentic self wants to be in that experience. And when she was able to take that as expansion and let that in and process it, lo and behold, a few weeks later, her current partner walked up to her in a restaurant in Venice. He's a biker with long hair, young actor, and he just said, can I take you on a date? And bam, they're together now so many years later and in a relationship. So it's just like learning to not fall to the traps of echo chambers or triggers or all the things that are being baited towards us as we evolve in consciousness and integrate. These are all opportunities to integrate further, become more of our whole worthy authentic self, aka magnetic and manifesting more things.
I think too, I had a friend who has been getting a ping forever to start their podcast. And they have this one envy expander that their whole career trajectory has gone in lockstep with. But this person is a lot more unafraid to put himself out there and, speak his mind. And so it's always been this envy expander for my friend. And they're like, oh my God, the Envy Expander just launched a podcast. And I was like, it's a gift. It's a gift.
Such a gift.
Of course that would happen. But I kept trying to tell them, I was like, this is showing you that stop waiting. This is for you. You should be doing this too. It's been calling to you. Them doing it takes nothing away from you. And just
Completely.
think of those envy expanders as the universe giving you a little roadmap. They're not there to make you feel less than or small or behind in life. They're there to show you, hey, you forgot about this dream. You forgot about this passion. We want to wake this up in you again.
Yeah,
here it is.
100%. It's a gift. Such a gift.
It really
amazing.
Is. It was so. They're starting the podcast. They're not even in this industry.
When it's it couldn't be more perfect. The one thing they're wanting to do and have been talking about.
So funny, and they're both come from a very different industry, so it's oh, of course that was what happened.
Completely.
Okay. I feel incomplete without a partner and have been single for 2 years after a major breakup. How do I start to rebuild to feel whole again and worthy while being single?
After 2 years. Wow. I always talk about this, and it's so confusing to people because until you really experience it, you don't really know what I'm talking about. But let me preface it. I always say the bank, the universe is your bank, the universe is your partner. What I mean by that is you become so worthy, so through a lot of unblocking, through a lot of expansion, and usually a lot of heartache, that you have to become your own version of that thing, to where you are so reliant on it and comfortable with it and confident in it that nothing could shake it again. So the way that I like to look at this as a direct example, after like the biggest heartbreak of my life at 25, which was really the biggest ego heartbreak, or 23 it happened actually. And by 25, so also a 2-year span, I started to figure this out for myself. And before that, it happened for me, like so deeply for me, so that I could even form this process of work for people. But I had to get really comfortable with starting to go to the movies by myself. The universe was not like throwing me any bones until I figured this out. Going to the movies by myself, going to dinner by myself, like everything by myself, to the point that I was so confident by myself that I didn't need a partner. I even remember this. There was this it may still exist, I don't know, but this place called Edendale in Los Feliz,
It's
Silver
still
Lake.
there.
Is it still there? And I got to the point where I was so confident in being single and so in my worth that I would like throw on, I didn't even drink anymore. I would throw on red lipstick and like dress up and go and do work at a bar. I knew every bartender, it would just be person after person coming up to talk to me, ask me out, blah, 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 because I got to a point where the universe was my partner. I was my partner. My whole worthy, authentic self is my partner. And even though, let's say if Max and I were to ever split for any reason, of course it'd be traumatic and hard. We have children, I'm saying children because we're having another, but it would be hard in those ways, but it wouldn't rip me open. It wouldn't tear me apart. Because why? Because there's another amazing partner out there for me. And until then, I know fuck, I look forward to the day of having my own space and time again. So all of this to say, if your job defined you, if your relationship defined you, growing up, did you witness that, in your caretaker's love patterns? They were on the floor, incapable of functioning or incomplete without a partner. You are here to break that cycle. That's why this is happening for you. And there is going to be an incredible partner on the other side of this, far more than what you're fathoming. But the invitation is that there's no external validation anymore. Your journey right now is to go on the internal journey until you are so fucking confident and happy alone. And I say that for this person who feels incomplete without partnership. The opposite is the medicine, right? Until you feel so complete alone, you don't hold all of the cards in manifestation, really. So that's my thought there.
Well, 1,000%. Because even, that first line, I feel incomplete without a partner. I think part of that, and Janelle touches on this, and we have some things cooking for next year in regards to this, but it's all really attachment stuff.
Yeah.
This is your wounding of feeling abandoned or feeling incomplete and not knowing how to build. Maybe even on a neuroscience level, not even having the neural pathways of what that loop is like to be your own secure attachment, to feel securely attached. And it's allowing you to go on that journey to explore that. It's a lot of inner child reparenting stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot of I don't feel good, and you're looking for that partner to fix it. You have to look to you to fix it. It was interesting. I did a DI the other day, and I had my magnetic family. And when I was talking to my therapist, she's like, you should call on them more times. When you're oh, I don't know what to do about this, just sit down and think okay, magnetic family, pull them up in your mind. Here's the problem I have going on. What should I do? And allow your inner child to lean on them for support, So there's going to be some stuff coming in the new year with this, but
Yes. Yes. I'm really excited about
I know.
it. But
But
yeah, that's the long of the short.
and in the meantime, the inner child DI will be huge for this. The unblock DI will be huge for this. Any of the DIs in the inner child workshop are great for this. And even just having that quick check-in with yourself, like, what do I need right now? Start attuning to you to take care of you, because that will break the feeling incomplete without the partner.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the invitation at the moment.
Okay. What DI is best to help with the urge to be liked by everyone? It leads me to going back into patterns and low self-worth behavior.
It's interesting here because the theme really is coming down to like shining your brightest, being your most authentic, whole worthy self.
Mhm.
I'll let you kick off on that one, Jessica.
Yeah. I mean, so this kind of goes back to everything we said. I guess maybe one route I could go in with this is the process of unblocking these things, especially for the new person. So if you're going through this challenge and you got to the unblock week and you're like, oh my gosh, this is standing in my way because I need to be liked by everyone and I keep going down this old rabbit hole. Like, how do I approach it? This is how I would approach it. So if you need to be liked by everyone, what were your last biggest tests and triggers that came up around this core wound? How did that play out for you? Okay, now let's go into the unblock DI or the inner child DI, or even the feel your feelings DI, and see, like, get curious about, like, almost see to be liked by everyone as a part of you. And then get curious about that part. It's really an inner child part. Why does it feel that way? What's its story? What's going on somatically in the body? Like, this is what you're doing in the inner child DI and the unblock DI. Hit it from that angle, like really explore the story that's coming up for them, and then allow it to feel safe again. Reparent it, right? Now you'll have another test or trigger, but now it's like that, but maybe slightly different. Keep going in, like every single time that comes up, keep going back into the hypnotic state and hearing it out fully, validating it, and then reparenting it. And then do it again and again and again until it doesn't feel so scary, so activating. Like maybe it's there, but it doesn't have the power it had. Like just keep going back with all of your tests and triggers, and continue to take aligned action in the opposite direction and step
Yeah,
into
and
that.
I would also add too, as someone who grew up with single young parents and being parentified too young, and then having an alcoholic parent majority of my life, researching codependency. That's a really common symptom, whether you fall on the avoidance spectrum or the like super attached spectrum, just really wanting to dog paddle to be liked. Yeah.
It's not, I think with any of the core wound blocks, just keep getting curious about it. Like look at it from different angles. I mean, you could even do like an expander, go back to week 3 and do an expanders DI around needing to be liked and have all your expanders be like, you're so liked. What are you talking about? Like you're fine, like hit it from all the different angles. Hit it from the grief DI. I didn't feel liked as a kid because these kids were mean to me. Okay, let's grieve it. Like try to hit it from every angle you can. To help remove some of the activation.
Yeah. And also, what we always talk about, creating a new neural pathway is through repetition and, emotion. So like, what do you say? Repetition and
emotional intensity.
Emotional intensity. So hitting it from all of those places is going to be dealing with the same new neural pathway.
And you then stepping through fear, taking the action for the opposite is again reinforcing that neural pathway in real life.
Yeah.
So you're good. You're on the path.
You're on the path. You have the tools in front of you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So wild. There's like so many of the same questions. And like
always.
really
it's always
have
that.
A theme. Oh, okay. This is kind of interesting. So how are people who don't do this work manifesting big things without unblocking? Might they be expanded, haven't taken action, but not the unblocking part?
I see in the typical world when I'm like, wow, that person's so magnetic. Like my prescription often for them is that they are just like, I hate using specific famous people that are controversial, but narcissists tend to be really incredible manifestors because they literally clinically believe that they're the best and that they're correct. And so they have that innate, deep sense of self-worth. And then if they've been exposed or raised around expansion, it's just so simple to manifest from that place. I was thinking about this actually recently with somebody I was on their podcast, and they're incredible manifestors. Talks about not having the best childhood, but like, I mean, incredible at manifestation. And I was really thinking about her, and I was like, there's something about how that I witness. I don't know if this is true, but how confident and in her light she is. So how close she is to her true authenticity and really operates from that place of authenticity. And at the end of the day, all I believe in manifestation, of course, is the universe is trying to get us back to that whole worthy, authentic essence we came onto the planet as before we experienced pain, shame, and programming. So in whatever different modalities she's used, because she's an extremely spiritual person, so she's clearly used a lot of modalities to shift energy around. She's so close to her authentic self, and clearly she's a very expanded person because she's famous and very successful. So that's sort of my prescription there, because I really like to like break people down when they don't know what this work is, but they manifest really well. What are your thoughts too, Jessica? Do you know any people that come to mind that are such good manifestors that obviously don't practice this work?
I think there's two ways this can look. So I think it can look the way of like that narcissist where it's like that false sense of self-worth, and they like are very commanding and call things in, with the caveat that almost all of the people that I know that, or even in the public eye that I can assume that might be on the narcissistic spectrum, are not manifesting things from their authentic self.
No.
Because they have that like wall of shame. They can call things in really fast, but it's not true. It's all still part of like their mask and their dance, right? And then the other version of that is someone like the person you were talking about, who is manifesting incredible things because they're close to their authentic self. I think for the people that I've seen who can manifest really, really well, but maybe aren't doing this work, when I look at like what parts of the puzzle, they always have massive expansion. Like the circles they are in are around people that not even are just expanders in certain things, but their mindset is like open, anything's possible. How can we get it done? Like it's not a closed or fixed mindset. It's very like the world's your oyster. Let's figure out the tools to get it done. And their blocks, like everyone has blocks, but their blocks might not align with the things that they're manifesting in. So like they might be naturally not having a lot of blocks towards that element of career, but come relationship, they have a ton, you know? So it's like, there's usually a sector that has been unblocked, or they just didn't get a lot of programming in that area. But then there's others that you're like, oh yeah, you definitely haven't really examined that spot yet. That's what I've kind of seen.
It's interesting. I think of someone like Angelina Jolie, who I don't know everything about. She's a private person, but I look at her, right? Like the way that she's channeled her trauma, from the bit of trauma I know of her growing up, was to be obscenely authentic. I mean, if you even look at her in interviews young, even though there's still a lot of trauma flying around, she's so honest. She's so open, and it's coming from such a direct place. And I've known, I can think of 3 friends of mine that are extremely beautiful and come from famous parents. And they're not successful. So I can't just blame it on that, right? It's not a symmetrical thing, and it's not a famous dad thing. It's not that. It's that level of like such like gravitation of authenticity. So I think
Mm,
of her, and then you can watch through her life as she experienced things that put her even deeper into her authenticity, like
mhm,
adopting a baby and having her marriage go and stuff, and like really coming in and dropping into that self and doing the work around that,
mhm,
in whatever way that she was processing it. It's just really interesting to watch that. And then, of course, like someone as polarizing as Trump, to give an example of what you were saying initially,
mhm,
this is someone, from the very little that I know about him, and I don't know obviously enough about him politically and all of that stuff. I don't follow that, but he came from like a really traumatic family that's in real estate. So he has this obscene amount of expansion from his father and his real estate family. So there's that. And then because of his trauma, I would argue that he leans on the narcissistic side pretty heavily. So not only does he think he's so right and good, but he has all of this tremendous expansion from childhood. That is a recipe for being an incredible manifester. To get back to Jessica's point, he's not manifesting that. I don't believe, I don't know that, I don't know him, but I don't believe he's manifesting the things that his like integrated, authentic self wants that would really light him up. I think he's manifesting more versions of his trauma.
mhm,
And he grew up in wealth and what he thinks being loved looks like and being successful looks like. And he manifests those things really, really, really well. But he doesn't, and I don't know him, so I don't know, but it doesn't appear that he's manifesting the things that are fulfilling him, right?
mhm.
But these are two examples of people that know nothing about this work, and who knows if they know much about a manifestation process at all, but they're tremendous manifestors. Just to try to think of two examples of that.
Mhm. I think Trump's even a manifester in human design too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, that makes sense.
I remember I saw a post somewhere about it. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. I even thinking of Angelina's journey, just from what we see, that's only one snippet. We don't know the whole version of her. But even when you see her really young as a teenager, so authentic, then there was like a phase where it felt a little bit more like an affront,
Mhm.
like stepping into sexuality and like this kind of dolled up Hollywood person. And then it went back down to like, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is who I am. I'm going to spend most of my time like trying to help people and with my family. And like, I'm not going to be on the scene. And you know what I mean? Like, she went back to that like kind of raw, gritty authenticity again. So I think it's just that, I don't know, that journey. We all have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the two like good examples. And there's a couple of other actresses that come to mind that are so magnetic because they're so authentically real. Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't change when they're talking to you. They're coming from either their heart or their like root chakra so honestly and openly. And I think that the world finds that captivating. People find that captivating. There's magnetism from that because there's such a deep level of authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And not many people feel the licensing to be authentic, but authenticity is what literally magnetizes things to you.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I think, people would look at someone like Angelina and be like, okay, if she's that, then let me study her, copy
No,
her,
yeah. And that does not
do
work.
exactly what she is. And
Yes.
that's not your path. That's not your gift. That's not why you're here. That's not your purpose. Like you only need to investigate you, like what lights you up, what's interesting to you, what makes you happy, what makes you feel confident. And it could look 1,000% different. And it would give you that same level of magnetism because it is
Yes.
so you.
Yes. 100%.
Okay, the dreamer archetype. But I don't think it's out of ego to impress others. More, I feel worthy to myself when I'm like XYZ. How to love my current self and still want to change.
So I'm like, what I'm gathering is this person, the impress others gives it away. You know what I mean? It gives it away that it's not, let me think of what's coming through. So I know people who are so funny, and no, that's not the angle I want to take. If there's any moment where I'm doing things to impress others, I'm a Leo rising. I love to impress others. I love attention. I love like warmth and connection through that. However, when people are impressed with me, there was a time where I lived only to impress others, right? Like that, all of the undertones of my actions were to be loved. It was all for external validation, and certainly seeking it through status for a very long time. I don't have an ounce of me anymore, really, that operates that way. I'm not doing things to be noticed or to be loved. I'm doing things because they so genuinely are coming through me. That's what I want to be doing. It's what's lighting me up, even when it's weird, even when it's not in style, even when it's random. You know, so what I'm getting at here is there would be no part of me at this point in time in this integration of where I'm at that it would even come across my mind that, but I like to impress others because I don't even think like that anymore. It's integrated. So this isn't that clear, but the line of saying, but I like to impress others shows that there's a lot more to integrate.
Well, she's saying she doesn't feel that, but she does feel I'll feel worthy to myself when I have XYZ. She says the story isn't like, oh, I don't care. Like, she said, I don't think it's out of ego to impress others.
Oh,
It's
I thought
more,
she said, I like to impress others. I was like, well, that's pretty obvious. Okay, so we can cut that too, Kevin. Sorry.
I'll read it again. One more time.
So sorry. I've got that all wrong because I'm like, this is so obvious.
Dreamer archetype. Okay. Dreamer archetype, but I don't think it's out of ego to impress others. More, I'll feel worthy to myself when I feel like XYZ. How to love my current self, but still want to change.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Okay. So this person, basically, they're trying to figure out, they're very aware that they're the dreamer archetype.
Yep.
And that they want to know, even though they haven't arrived at integration, how to still be happy and love where they're at currently.
Yeah, like I do put a little pause in the I'll feel worthy to myself, because that makes me think it's some external validation is still going on. But they're wanting to be like, how do I love myself now, even though I like want to have progress in my life?
I see. I'll let you start with that one, Jessica.
So I'm trying to really like put myself in this person's shoes and like all the dynamics I know of people around me. And like one of the male friends in our circle hasn't been working for a while, and they're waiting to get a job and looking for jobs and all of these things. And the process is taking a long time, and they are loving the version of self they are, but they feel purposeless without having like a job or something to put that into. And so they're kind of in this situation where they're like, I need the job to feel more worthy about myself because I don't feel purpose driven. Like I need something to like motivate me, to connect me to the world, to be like giving in some way. So I think about this person, and not saying this is this person who wrote in, but when you have these things that you're like, gosh, it's really important to me to have this next step, but how do I feel worthy without having it right now? And I think part of how you sort of like, I don't want to say hack it, but part of how you start to have compassion for it is not attaching to the version of you with or without a job. So it's kind of like saying the version of you now without, and this could be a different item, place it with career, relationship, home, whatever. The version of you who doesn't have that, like isn't stuck in this portal. It's the same version that also has it. And so it's like almost debunking this idea that they're different people, that you're the same person, just sometimes you'll be working and sometimes you won't. Sometimes you'll have this thing and sometimes you won't. It's like getting to that energy that, okay, the material things around me sometimes fall off and go away and come back, but I always trust that I'll get my needs met. And it's not from a place of fear or a lack that I'm trying to manifest this new thing. It's just, oh, I need to fill this thing in my life. And that's important to me right now. And it lights me up. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
absolutely. And I think the energetic of this is the exact same answer as the person who felt incomplete without a partner. Not that,
Mm,
again, the person asking this question is related to, say, your friend without the job, but there's a gap. There's a gap in where they are and where they want to be, right?
yeah.
That's the same as the person. There's a gap in being single, wants to have a relationship. There's a gap
Mhm.
between your friend, doesn't have purpose through a job. And I think it's the same remedy. It's the same remedy for all
Mm,
three, is until you get to the point where you
mhm,
are so understanding of who your authentic self is, with or without the job, whatever the
mhm,
career is, with or without the thing that is in this person's mind, what the gap may be. I don't know what the specific gap is. And the same with the person in the relationship. Same as where one might be in their career right now but wants to be here, or same
mhm,
as in friendship circles or home or whatever. And I think what all the universe is asking of us is to become so understanding and dynamically comfortable with our authentic self of where we
mm,
are right now,
mhm,
that, like you're saying, come and go, though I can guarantee you after that point, it'll just be coming and coming and coming.
mm,
The universe is inviting us to become so truly authentic. So I get back to, just so that it's clear for someone, a lot of people can register this with relationship. When I had to be single as a codependent, as an attachment style, like super attached attachment style, until I could get to the place where I was almost an avoidant, like not in an unhealthy way, but because I was so comfortable with being single and who I was and discovering myself and getting comfortable with that, similar to your friend right now, whatever they can be exploring to become so authentically confident,
mhm,
that's what's going to bring the thing. That's what's going to
mhm,
close the gap. So, I know that this person's question is, yeah, that's what I want, but how? And I
mhm,
think the real key here is whatever you are seeking the validation from, and even with your friend, obviously that's dealing with security, number one. I don't know what
mhm,
their, savings and stuff looks like, but um, none of that matters energetically. What
mhm,
matters is that we're stepping into our whole worthy, authentic self. So when the person asks, how do I do that right now? It's by doing this work. So it's by doing the authentic code. It's by walking through all the things you're scared of right now. It's
mhm,
by expanding around you. Who are the expanders around you that are so authentically happy and in their bliss? Doesn't have to be
mhm,
in career, relationship, whatever. Everything. Like, what are the fucking crafts that they love, that they're just doing, like that they're just doing what lights them up all of the time?
mhm,
That's the invitation here. You're not going to manifest more or be loved more. And what we're saying with the dreamer, just as a clear example, when you have the famous friends, when you have the big career, when you have the house, when you have the whatever your version of society or family or media has told me, if I have this, I'll be loved, that's not what's going to bring it. It's going to be until you become that thing through the mundane little quirky shit that your soul loves and you become so confident in it. That's what's going to
mhm,
close the gap.
mm. I mean, I even think about like for my friend who hasn't been working, I'm like, what's your daily routine?
Yeah.
Like, does that feel authentic? Are you waking up without the, restriction of having a job you have to check into every day? Plan your dream day, even if
Mhm.
you don't have a budget to do anything. What would you like? Would you go for a walk? What time would you wake up? How would you spend this? Like, it's almost like that dream life brainstorm, but
Yeah.
take all the material things out of it and just
Yes.
get to the bare bones of like, how would you feel? What kind of emotions would you want to be feeling throughout the day?
Who
What
am
would
I?
that, yeah.
Like,
What do I
starting with that,
like?
who am I when none of this stuff validates me? Who am
Yeah.
I? Because
Yes.
the who am I, like getting back to Angelina, sorry, my do not disturb just messed up. Um, the who am I, like getting back to the Angelina Jolie example, who am I at like my rawest, most authentic, in my bliss state? You know what I mean? Like, who
Mhm.
am I? Like, that's what's going to close the gap. And then how do I unblock any of the stuff around that that isn't allowing me to live like that? And we're not talking about the material things and the jobs and the stuff that'll come in the relationships. It's the day to day. Who
Mhm.
am I?
Mhm. Mm. Such a good question to end off on, because I think that can kind of set people off on whether you started the challenge or where you're at in this process. Thinking about, who am I going into this new year? What do you want? And one kind of closing thought I'll leave you guys with too. I've been thinking a lot about the end of the year and how much pressure there is to like transform and come in strong. And, we have to finish this. One, the manifestation challenge is going to stay open. So you guys have time to explore it. Like, I'm ready to go back into it again come January, to just like
Same.
go through slowly and like really let it sink in. Don't feel like you have to jump off Jan 1 and your whole life has to change. Like, that's why we have a year-long membership, because it takes time. Be gentle with yourself. The more you force yourself, the more you're going to retreat and just put everything away and go back to your old patterns. Like, go slowly towards these new patterns. Amazing things will come through. You need the time to integrate and just, I don't know, just have this hope and excitement for the new year instead of this, oh my God, I have to like do everything.
Well,
Come.
media is going to hit you with
Yeah,
all of the
exactly. Exactly.
diets and things and resolutions. And way back when I wrote a blog post, I don't even think these things exist on the site anymore, but it was one about how literally this coming Thursday solstice is winter. It signifies winter. Winter is death. Like in every culture, winter is inward. It's reflective. It's when things are cold and restful. And so winter is the subconscious. It's the time to be in the subconscious. It's not, unless you're being pinged, unless you're literally directly being communicated from the universe to go do this, do that, try that, take this action. Like, settle into that, surrender into that, and let this time be the subconscious, the expansion, and doing this work and really digging in. Don't make it feel like it has to be all the things that every magazine and social media and things going to tell you need to be doing. Because I guarantee you that if you're in the southern hemisphere, you might be feeling a little bit differently. But in the northern hemisphere, your body and everything about you is probably being called to like process, be inward, and aside from like years of programming of what January is meant to represent for someone.
Yeah, just leaning into that inward and give yourself time. Like that one item on my list that I haven't got full clarity on. I'm not going to rush it. I'm going to
Mhm.
allow the pings to come through. I'm going to feel the emotions as they come up and just sit with it. And the more I notice an impatience coming up, then the impatience is what I'm going to look at, not how can I have it come faster or move faster. It's not about moving faster, because every little step is so vital to the journey.
Agreed. Totally agree. I'm so excited for everybody.
Me too. I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday. Sending you all lots of love. And yeah, I feel like this challenge has been like one of my favorites, I
Oh
gotta
yeah.
say, because I just
Yeah.
feel like so connected with everyone. And I feel like we're all on this slow kind of crab shell unraveling journey. And it's
Yes.
very, very magical.
Yeah, it's always just so special to do that in community. Just so
Yeah.
great. And we won't have another challenge again until mid next year. So it's like this is the time to be in that community and going inward. I love it.
Yes. Well, thank you, Lacy. And we'll see you all next month.
Yes, thank you. Happy New Year to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.